You've been using Claude's newest features without realizing Anthropic designed them to make you more dependent on AI, and the genius is, it doesn't feel like a sales pitch. Every new feature solves a real problem. Claude Projects let you dump your company's documents into a persistent memory. The web search capability means you don't need to bounce between Claude and a browser. Custom instructions let you configure Claude once, and it remembers how you like things done. Individually, each one is useful. Together, they form a sticky ecosystem, because once you've built your entire workflow around Claude, switching to ChatGPT or Gemini feels like a massive downgrade. You'd have to rebuild everything. This is what TechCrunch just reported on. It's not that Anthropic's doing anything dishonest. It's that they are playing a smarter game than OpenAI. OpenAI competes on capability and hype, the latest model, the most powerful system. Google competes on integration, it's everywhere already. But Anthropic's competing on something subtler, stickiness. They're building Claude in a way that makes you more dependent on it, one smart feature at a time. And by the time you've built your whole life around Claude, you're not leaving. This strategy isn't new in tech, but it's usually obvious when it's happening. Spotify's algorithm learns what you love and plays it back so perfectly that you can't imagine music without it. Netflix's recommendation engine makes binge-watching so frictionless that you lose track of time. Apple's ecosystem locks you in because your iPhone, Mac, and iPad all talk to each other. Switching means leaving everything behind. But those are tactics consumers see coming. Spotify knows you know its algorithm is addictive. Netflix knows you know it's pushing another episode. Apple customers understand they are paying a premium for integration. Here's what makes Anthropic's approach different. They're solving real problems that were actually broken before. You do need persistent memory for your documents. You do need web search if you're researching something current. You do need custom instructions if you're using Claude for different kinds of work. So each feature feels essential, not manipulative. Each one is genuinely better than the alternative, writing prompts over and over, switching tools constantly, starting from scratch every conversation. Anthropic isn't tricking you. They're just being smarter about feature design. They're building things you actually want, and that want, multiplied across 1,000 small features, turns Claude into your default tool. It's the most effective form of lock-in, because it never feels like lock-in at all. Let's walk through how this actually works in practice. Claude Projects is the keystone feature here. Imagine you're a marketing team. You upload your brand guidelines, your past campaigns, your customer research, everything that makes your company you. Now you start a Claude project. Every conversation Claude has inside that project has access to all that context. You ask Claude to write an email, it already knows your brand voice. You ask for a campaign concept. It understands your audience. After a few days of this, you're not just using Claude, you're using Claude plus your company's knowledge. Switching to ChatGPT means starting over. ChatGPT doesn't have access to your documents. You'd have to paste everything into every conversation or set up your own system. So you stay. Custom instructions do something similar on a personal level. You tell Claude once, I'm a software engineer, I write in Python. I like concise explanations. Now Claude remembers that. Every future conversation is optimized for you. You're not just getting AI, you're getting personalized AI that's learned how you think. Web search sounds like a small thing until you realize it means you never have to leave Claude. You need current data, it's right there. You need to verify a fact, search built in. For knowledge workers especially, Claude becomes an all-in-one tool. Why switch? Here's how this plays out in the real world. A software developer integrates Claude into her IDE via an extension. She's debugging code, Claude suggests fixes without switching tools. Over time, that IDE integration means Claude is part of her development loop. A researcher loads his entire archive of research papers into Claude Projects. Now Claude is his research assistant. It knows the field, understands his interests, remembers what he's read. A freelance writer sets up Claude with her style guide as a custom instruction. Every article she writes, Claude gets better at matching her voice. These aren't dramatic moments. There's no aha, I'm locked in. It's just, one day you realize you can't work without Claude anymore. A marketing agency uploaded their entire portfolio into Claude Projects. Now when they brief new campaigns, Claude already understands their brand, their competitors, their campaign history. That's powerful. But it also means switching to ChatGPT would require uploading everything to OpenAI's servers and rebuilding the whole thing. so they stay. That's not manipulation, it's just good product design that happens to make switching expensive. Expensive not in money, but in time and effort. The genius of Anthropic's strategy is that it doesn't feel restrictive. It feels helpful. Claude isn't chaining you to a vendor. Claude is getting smarter about serving you. By the time you realize how dependent you've become, Claude has already become essential. So how does this compare to what OpenAI and Google are doing? OpenAI's strategy is different. They're building the most powerful models. ChatGPT Plus costs money, and they upsell features like voice mode and vision. OpenAI's play is, we're the most capable, so you'll pay for access. The lock-in is just being the best. Google's strategy is different too. They're integrating Gemini everywhere. In Gmail, in Docs, in Search, in Android. If you already live in Google's ecosystem, Gemini is just there. You don't have to switch to anything new. Google's lock-in is convenience. Anthropic's strategy is something else entirely. They're not saying you must switch because we're the best, and they're not relying on you already being locked in elsewhere. Instead, they're building Claude in a way that makes your own workflow depend on it. You lock yourself in because Claude has become essential to how you work. OpenAI is like a premium product. Google is like an existing ecosystem. Anthropic is like a habit. The subtle difference matters because habits are harder to break than vendor lock-in. You can switch products if you get frustrated, but habits rewire how you think. The researchers who use Claude for research start thinking in Claude-compatible ways. The developers who use Claude start writing code that Claude understands. That's the deepest form of dependence. Not dependence on a company, but dependence on a tool that's changed how you think. This matters for 3 reasons. First, market dominance. AI companies win by getting market share. Users that get locked into Claude not by force, but by habit and integration, are users that OpenAI doesn't get. Market share is won in basis points sometimes. Every developer who makes Claude their default IDE assistant is market share Google didn't capture. Every company that puts their knowledge base into Claude Projects is a ChatGPT customer that stays Claude. Anthropic might be the 3rd player today, but they are playing the long game. Second, this shapes how AI companies think about product development. OpenAI is now racing to copy Claude's features. They need persistent memory. They need better integration. They need custom instructions. Google's doing the same thing. The whole industry is converging on how do we make our AI more sticky, which means every AI tool is getting engineered to be more habit-forming. That's not necessarily bad, but it's worth noticing. Third, this reveals something about how AI adoption actually works. It's not hype that makes AI essential. It's integration into your actual workflow. ChatGPT was the flashy announcement that got everyone interested. But Claude's the boring, steady feature improvements that make it irreplaceable. The unsexy truth is, markets are won by execution, not by marketing. Anthropic isn't taking over the world through announcements. They're taking it over by making a tool so useful it becomes the default. So what should you actually do with this information? First, recognize what's happening. When you use Claude, notice which features you're relying on. Are you using Claude Projects? That's the lock-in feature. Are you using custom instructions? That's personalization creating habit. Are you using web search or Canvas? That's integration that makes switching harder. None of these are bad, they're actually helpful features. But knowing they're designed with stickiness in mind helps you make conscious choices. Second, don't assume this is unique to Anthropic. Every AI company is doing this. Microsoft integrated Copilot deeply into Windows. Google integrated Gemini into Search. OpenAI is racing to copy Claude's persistence and memory features. This is how AI adoption works now, not through force or fraud, but through making the tool so useful it becomes essential. Third, be thoughtful about where you invest. If you upload your company's sensitive documents into Claude Projects, you're investing in Claude. That's not wrong. Claude has strong privacy practices and Anthropic's honest about security. But it means you're betting on Anthropic's long-term viability and on Claude staying better than alternatives. That's a real choice. Finally, remember that lock-in goes both ways. Yes, Claude gets stickier as you use it more. But you also have more power as a user. If Claude stops being the best tool for your work, you can leave. The stickiness is real but not unbreakable. You're not trapped, you're just investing in a tool. Here's what this story really tells us about the AI industry in 2026. It's not about deception. Anthropic isn't secretly manipulating anyone. TechCrunch wrote this story favorably because what they are doing is actually smart, not sinister. It's about competition shifting from who has the best model to who builds the most indispensable product. In 2023, the race was capability. Who has the smartest model? OpenAI won that round. In 2024, it was speed. Who can deploy models fastest? That became competitive. But in 2025 and beyond, it's integration and habit. Who can make their AI essential to how you work? That's where real market share gets decided. Anthropic saw this change coming and played the right game. They knew they couldn't out-hype OpenAI or out-integrate Google, so they built Claude in a way that made it indispensable through usefulness, not through marketing. That's the masterclass. For you watching, the takeaway is simpler. AI adoption is shifting from optional tool to essential infrastructure. Whatever AI you choose, Claude, ChatGPT, Gemini, will become the default lens through which you see work. Choose wisely, because switching is harder than it looks. The tool you adopt today will shape how you think for years to come. So pay attention to which AI becomes your default, because once it does, the AI won, not through selling you on AI, but through being so useful you couldn't imagine working without it.